Yeah, because you said something important about respecting beliefs that maybe we can go back to the fact that you feel like you have to prove that your beliefs matter and that they're good. So you're aware of that negative like perception of Black
Yeah,
communities and their abilities. And so you are kind of adjusting your behavior and the way you interact with people with that knowledge.
absolutely. Because as I was saying, like, when someone presents their cultural beliefs or their cultural heritage to me, I always give them that benefit of the doubt that whatever they believe in, it's logical and it makes sense, and I should respect it, I should value it. So I don't really push any further. Whereas in our case, I feel like we always have to defend, our cultural practices or cultural beliefs. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why do we, like you had mentioned the elders? Why do we show so much respect to the elders? We have to defend it, and I just don't see why we have to defend ourselves anymore. So I'm trying to hold off on explaining it because I don't force anyone else to
Mhm.
explain that to me.
And do you understand where it comes from? Like, do you have a good understanding of like
Yeah,
why it happens?
because we're always being questioned, we're always being questioned about everything, like the hair touching, not to harp on that, but really we don't like that. But the hair touching, we have to defend why we don't like people touching our hair, or, when, you know, this happens at work, and I'm a teacher, right? This is me working for other educators, where a woman is standing next to me. We've been talking for a while as colleagues, right? So we have this mutual level of respect, but also as you get to know colleagues, that idea of a work friend. So
Mhm.
we're a little bit able to talk about our personal lives and go outside of the work environment. So we're hanging out, and she starts laughing, and she says, "You're not gonna like this." So like, and I'm like, "Well, don't say it." She's like, "No, it's funny. It's funny. Just listen. But you're not gonna like it." I'm like, "If you know I'm not gonna like it, don't say the joke. It's not funny."
Mhm.
And she proceeds to tell a racist joke, and she knew I wasn't gonna like it. I knew I wasn't gonna like it. I told her
Mhm.
not to say it. She said it anyways, and I told her after I told her I didn't like it, and I had to explain to her why my feelings mattered and why she shouldn't have said that to me. And so we've now changed our dynamic where we're very, very strictly colleagues, as opposed to
Mhm.
that loose work friends thing. Because why would, like, I just can't imagine
Yeah, yeah.
someone going to hurt my feelings and say no, but my ability to laugh through this is more important than you knowing you're going to be upset by it. And yeah, that's why, because we're always questioned like that. Like, our feelings are being questioned, our autonomy to refuse or to dislike.
Mhm.
We always have to prove it. Don't do this because no, but like, why?
Mhm. Yeah, and yeah, and even it's funny because I always tell people like what you experience is very common, of course. It's kind of, similar to a lot of different Black people from different Black communities. But also, when we kind of denounce it, then we are questioned even more. So it's just a cycle that keeps on happening. But when we like do research, for example, when we are trying to prove with fact, like, okay, you can question, but there is something that you can question. If we do a research and we publish a report about this specifically, you will have the proof that it's a thing. It's not just my words, it's research. Well, I can bet that 99.9 of the research done on equity inclusion just validates everything Black people have said they experience. Every single one of those experiences are through valid, factual, but always questioned until there's research. And even with research, they're still being questioned.
And that's crazy. It's crazy to me. Like you talk about the research. Why? Like the Toronto police recently apologized because they're racist. But we've been telling you that you're racist. Why do you need to do the research to listen to what we just told you? You know,
Yeah.
hey, I
We
experienced
have the
racism.
receipt now.
What? But why? Like, why is it not? And like I try to now. This has been ingrained in us too, and I try to step away from that. Where if I hear, for example, Burkina Faso is a country I follow, with the political situation and all of that. If I hear it from a Burkina Faso source, I at the beginning used to have that tendency of wanting to go and check a white source to confirm that the same thing. And I'm like, why would I do that? Well, we shouldn't do that. So I stopped fact checking my black sources to white sources, as though when white people say it, now it's real. Now it matters.
The unconscious part of us is very strong. Like it's very strong. And it's, you see, there's in our conversation, there's the same theme of there's a lot that is underneath the surface that we're not aware of. So everything that we internalize and everything that we are grieving is deeply, deeply ingrained and buried sometimes somewhere. And even even our reactions, like we have in our project, like we talk about questionable reactions, usually in the sense that you need to accept the way you react, because don't judge yourself, just try to understand why you react that way. And it's surprising how we accept sometimes when we're in spaces that are not inclusive, the opposite of what we were talking about, that we change the way we behave, we change, we bend our values. We're trying to just that kind of survival mode kicks in, and then we are different people.
And that's because we learned that at such a young age. We learned how to fit in, to not be picked on, how to fit in, to not be called a bad student. And that's why creating those safe spaces, again, for children is so important, because that space allows them to know that they're not wrong for this, that, or the other thing. And hopefully, as deeply rooted as it is maybe for you and I, hopefully by creating those spaces for those Black children, then they're going to be able to realize that earlier than us. Yeah, there's still a little code switch when they're in white spaces. We're still far away from that. But maybe they'll code switch knowing that they can still be proud of the way that they really talk. You know what I mean? Knowing that, yeah, like it's okay to be me. It's just not safe to be me right here, right now. And it would be so good for it to be safe for them to be themselves all the time, and we're not there yet. But at least knowing that it's okay to be me, just not safe to be me. That's a difference. That's worth a lot.
Yeah. I'm not sure everybody's familiar with code switching, so I'm going to explain it just in case, just to be on the safe side. It's concept that is core to my identity for obvious reasons, because I'm mixed race. So my dad is white, my mom is Black. I was raised mostly by my mom within a Caribbean community, so I definitely identify way more with that community. But I am also part of another community. And the way that I behaved, the expectations, the codes, the way we talk, we dress, everything was very different. And so instead, and I think that's how the brain works when you're a human being. Instead of thinking, oh, I'm me, so I can just, take whatever I want and take the best and like do my own thing, I would just do something that we call code switching, which means I'm going to adapt to my environment and act like more like my white family when I'm with them. But then I'm going to go when I'm with my Black family, I'm going to change the way that change who I am, the way I behave and everything, just to fit in and to mimic their own way of being, way of existing. And so there you always like kind of changing who you are just to make sure you can connect with people, that you're accepted, and that you are just part of the group. So that's what code switching is. How would you describe code switching?
Exactly like that. I think, everything between how often you smile or blink, how loud your voice gets, the way that you roll your letters, and like it's so different. It's so different. It's scary to be loud and to be Black, in non-Black spaces. Um, you know, I've been called angry when I'm just excited. I've been called scary or threatening by my students even, um, and have had to explain why that's not true. Because I am loud, I'm excited, and so when I bring excitement, I bring the loudness. And so I asked, this parent, I said, because I try not to code switch anymore. I asked this
Mhm.
parent, I asked a student in front of their parent, I said, hey, when I'm loud, what kind of words am I saying? Like what language do you hear? And the language was positive. When I'm loud, what is my face doing? Like, are my eyes scrunched up, or are they wide? Am I smiling? Am I frowning? And again, it was more positive. So I'm like, I am loud. That's part of how I express myself. And I'm also big and black. I didn't say that part, but I am loud. That's how I express myself. But what about all the other nonverbal cues that are
Mhm.
telling you, and verbal cues that are telling you my emotions and my feelings? So it's hard because that how loud you speak. I smile a lot. I smile
Mhm.
a
You
lot,
do.
and I don't mean it all the time. But it's easier to smile. It's safe to smile,
Mhm.
and it's not safe to frown if you're a big black man. So even that is part of that code switching. How often we smile, how often we blink.
Mhm. It's interesting that you say you try to not code switch. I mean, you're aware that you're still doing it and it's not something you're in control of.
Not even close. And it's comfortable too. I think non-marginalized communities do it as well in a different way. Because
Mhm.
sometimes it is just, settings. Of course, it might be different than a casual business setting. But, it's nice. It's almost nice to feel like, you know, sometimes I've seen that when the parents drop off, the kids are black in nature. Some parents are black, some parents are not black, but the kids are not black. So the parents drop off. It's always funny. Sometimes I'll notice when the white parents are gone or haven't yet arrived, there's an extra level of familiarity between the black parents. Like we're parents of the same community of kids, so we're
Mhm.
like certain type of we're talking casually, and the white parents are there we're talking casually, and the white parents even it's like an extra. It's like a secret club almost, where we can
Yeah.
really, and it's fun and it's. But the fact that we have to do it the other way is sometimes a little bit.
Well, I feel like in those situations, though, we don't. I'm not worried that what I say can be misinterpreted, and I also know that people will get it. So there's a lack of a. It's more like it's effortless, and there's less. I'm less self conscious also because I don't think about my words. Like I think there's really that those layers of filtering myself when I meet other people. It's just those filters are kind of I can lift them a little more, and it's less layered when I'm around people that I know will just get it.
Yeah,
And I say, oh my God, my kids are scared if they just disrespect me, and you're not going to think it's because I slap them or I use physical violence. You're not going to think that because I'm angry or there's an issue with me. You're like, yeah, of course they will respect you. You get mad. What else?
that's funny because we might just have met each other and get each other more than like a non-marginalized, a non-black friend that I've known for maybe years, decades. It's so funny because yeah, we get it. We had the same story, though it's different. We're that same story. You and I have the same past, and we get it.
And it goes back to I feel safe because I can. There's more potential for safe connection with you that there's with other people that I might not know because there's a lot of question marks as to you know what do they understand. Like I know that I had a white partner, and to me, it's obvious that we're going to connect. Like it has nothing to do with race. And then there's those little things that gets in the way of a relationship. Exactly the fear part, like the discipline part. There's a misunderstanding as to what discipline is. And you're like, oh, but I didn't foresee that because I thought because it was so natural to me. It was so organic to what I was that for me, I'm going to pass it on. Like, it's the normal, natural order of things. I'm going to pass it on. And if I was with someone who was black, then we would both like, we'll pass it on together. And then, but like, I'm going to give it. It's like, no, discipline is too harsh. And I'm like, but too harsh? I don't want to talk all the time. Like, I don't think it works.
Yeah,
So there's this weird tension where you're like, oh, that's what it is when you share cultural codes. This is the familiarity that
and
we
it's
take for granted almost.
exactly that. Oh,
So
it's weird.
it's weird, but also I'm like, let's go back to like having a space that is, what we can call non-inclusive. Um, what is the like? I know what a safe space is for me. I think I understand you because I feel this. The more I share identities with the people who are around me, the safer I feel. So if I'm around like queer, racialized people who understand neurodivergency, I'm good. I feel like I belong. I'm fine. And then you take away one identity, and I'm like, it's good, but it's not as good. And then you take another one, like, it's good. It's still really good, but it's definitely not as good as when it was like even more layered identity. What does a safe space looks for you, and how does it feel?
Oof, that's a hard one. I mean, how does it look? As you said, it looks where you can see yourself everywhere that you're looking, and it feels so safe. It feels so warm. It feels so relaxing. And I don't even know how to describe the word safe, but that's all of those things, right? Where you just know, that you'll be understood, that you'll be given the benefit of the doubt, that you won't be othered, that you'll be supported, uplifted. That's it's so many of those things where it's so silly. You'll just be you can be you, and as the more you get, it's almost like that. Like the more you get, the better your reception is. The better you receive. Like if you're in those spaces, the more you take off layers and you start acting more and more like yourself, the more people are happy to see you and receive you. Which is so strange because usually in the real world it's the other way around, right? The less like yourself you are, the better you are received. The difference, the bass of my voice, the better I'm received. That the way that I dress, the way that I put my hair together, the better I'm received. Whereas these are not me; these are layers that are weighing me down, right? It's that weight of all of those extra layers. And when you're in that safe space, you get to take it off and you get to be light. Yeah. I had a kid at Black in Nature. Uh, we're talking about his regular school compared to his nature school, and he said something to me at the very beginning. He says, "I get angry out." He said it was going to be difficult. Like this is our first date together. He said he's not gonna. He really is excited to be there, but he's scared that I'm not gonna like him because he has anger issues and he does a lot of bad things when he's angry. And as we're talking, like what makes you angry at school? And the things he said were microaggressions, macroaggressions, even, like people calling his hair poo poo and these things like that, making fun of his skin color and skin tone and comparing him to this and that. And I'm like, kind of makes sense that you're angry when that happens. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you be angry? And of course, when you're angry, you're going to react a certain way. And it's not acceptable. But if you're angry all the time, it makes sense. Anyways.
And he's judging himself.
He's judging himself.
He thinks he's the problem.
Yeah. But with that safe space, this is maybe end of week 5 together. So every Saturday, this is our first Saturday together. And we're talking, we're chatting, and he just ponders. And he's like, oh, sorry, 1 second. Sorry. Yeah. So this this kid, I think we're walking in the same space that we had been when we had to talk about him getting angry. And he stops and he's like, I don't get angry here. And we talked about that. And he's like, I guess none of those things that set him off have happened. He hasn't been angry. He hasn't been difficult to manage. He's been respectful. He's been kind. And he's putting this out about himself, I'm not telling him any of these things, but he's realizing that in this safe space where he's at, he doesn't get in trouble. He doesn't do bad things. He doesn't get angry. And that's what a safe space is. Space where you can be yourself. And
there's less triggers.
Yeah.
There's less triggers. So he's able to regulate his emotion better because he's not being stung by mosquitoes constantly. It's good because it's in nature, so the analogy just works.
That's I didn't see that, but that's a good one. And he didn't get
Yeah.
stung by mosquitoes, actually.
Yeah, see? There's two types. The one that you can see, the one that's just metaphorical, which is good. Yeah, thank you for sharing that anecdote. I think it's the third time in an interview that someone mentions that there is a connection with being angry and being very sensitive to social justice themes, or very sensitive to discrimination, having an environment that's unfriendly with people who are different, and it shows in behavior that are rooted in anger. But anger is not necessarily a bad emotion. I think it's what you do with it and where it leads you that's bad. But if there is an emotion there, there's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
for
good
one,
that in that space something was addressed to impact his behavior in a positive way.
yeah,
So it is fantastic. I think this is what you wanted. This is kind of the the
exactly.
goal. Like, you achieve your goal. This is what you wanted.
Well, and that kid, like, I mean, this was our second session of Black in Nature. So that kid in that conversation is weight on my mind, because we haven't. It's been hard creating these spaces because there hasn't been funding, and so a lot of the time spent is just free time. And so that story just always reminds me when I'm tired or this or that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, let me find time to show up because that's what these spaces mean to these kids. That's crazy. Like, to not be angry, but to be around children. It's that should be a human right, but it's
Yeah,
not.
that should be human rights. But I think first we would need to have like almost a revelation as to what it is to be. Everybody should understand what it is to be from a marginalized group, of having that identity that is not from the dominant group.
Yeah.
But as long as the dominant group thinks, oh, it works for us.
It works for us. Why would we change it?
Why would we change it? It works for us. I know that when I was like thinking about that conversation, I was thinking about my mom. I texted her the other day because we went to the group in nature with other, like, with only Black children, of course, the Black space. So I sent a text to, like, pictures of my kids to my mom saying, "Oh, we're at the group. It's fun. Like, it's a safe space. Blah blah blah." And she's like, "But why only Black people?" And she's Black. Like, she's my mom is Black. It's like, why only Black is not inclusive? She lives in another country, so for her, it was just like you described, like the elders, like, what? Why would you? We want inclusion. Like, why would you do that? And then I didn't even explain it to her because I was done for the day. I'm like, oh, whatever. But it really reminded me that some people find it odd and triggering when it's Black people. But I could think about it like 100 example of space that are like exclusive to white people, that my mom would never see a Black person do, like the scouts, or even some sports, or some activities, or like so many different things that you will only see white people do. And she would not blink or not think about anything. She wouldn't think, oh, how come they have white spaces and it's not inclusive? But if she sees a group of Black people doing an activity together, for her, it's like, that's why.
And that's wild because even nature, like going on a hike. I remember when I first started hiking in Ottawa on the Gatineau trails. If I was hiking with my family, I was not crossing another Black family during my hike. COVID changed that in Ottawa. I see a lot more of us hiking, but it was rare that I would see another Black family. So really, white people had nature to themselves. If you took a video of people hiking at Gatineau Park, it wasn't all white gathering, and now just a few Black people doing it is offensive or something. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's so different. Like every group I go to is different, but like Sometimes in those black faces, we'll go on a hike together. Me and a few black men, we do like a king's retreat, and we just go out to the cottage. We spend time together. But when you're hiking with a group of black men, the vibe is different. We have our, I don't know if white people do this, but I've never seen it done. But we have our speaker with us. We're playing the tunes, we're passing along, different things, jokes, wisdom, knowledge, beverages. It's a different adventure. And I've definitely gone hiking with white people before, and it's not the same vibe. So, it's nice to be together. It's nice to let our personalities really come out. And, I know that my first time playing music on a nature walk was scary because I was scared to offend the white ways of being in nature. I didn't want to interrupt a white person's meditative nature walk or whatever. And now I'm unapologetically black. And, this is my nature too. So if in my nature, there's going to be some hip hop, well, then you better walk away from my nature in this moment, because if you don't like it, sorry, but
my EPUB does for me what your silence do for you. So
yeah, go find your styles. But I don't have to, because that's the thing. We always feel like we have to fit into their box, and I know we're running low, but there was I don't remember this Caribbean country anymore. I think it was St. Lucia, but a few white people bought some land on St. Lucia, right on the beach. They turned it into a private beach. They put signs. So imagine the audacity. They went from whatever white land they were in. They went to a black country. They bought the land, private beach signs, and they said no on this beach that was always St. Lucia Beach. Said no large crowds, no loud music. But we like music in the Caribbean. So the moment the sign went up, the people of the community gathered in a crowd, played loud. They had the best party on that beach. What are you gonna do? You came to our land. Why are you here? So
we didn't come. We didn't ask you to come here.
This was
and
our
change
beach
everything and privatize something that also human rights, access to. You're an island. I mean, access to it's just so basic. It's just I don't know.
It's crazy, but
it lets people go.
And then to want to be there but not be there, you want to be in St. Lucia, but you don't want to have solutions there. It's kind of like, I don't know.
Kind of very typical for capitalists, but it's another conversation.
Anyway, sorry.
And speaking of, no, it's perfectly connected to what we were talking about. But speaking of, it's a good segue to what I wanted to chat about, because politics. This is going to be the more philosophical / political section of the conversation. But part of the thing that makes the conversation important, and maybe the confusion or the awkwardness around those spaces, it's because you're restricting access to something. I mean, there's kind of a power structure to it. There's a power dynamic, and this is my space. You cannot access it. There's a boundary that I've put in place, and I feel like it's triggering because some people don't think Black people are legitimate when they want to have boundaries. Because who gave you the right? Who gave you the power to have those boundaries? Especially when you advocate for the opposite for other communities, you want to have access. But what do you think about that power dynamic that exists when you're like, no, that space belongs to us?
Well, that's what I don't understand. As you approach whiteness, you're able to get things that you cannot get if you're further away from whiteness. What I mean is that, there are spaces that are just for women, right? And that's okay. But white people can be women. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's okay to have a white only gym. Not a white only gym, sorry, a women's only gym, because white women do want that. And so it's okay. There's a Jewish community center. That's okay because white people are Jewish as well. You can go to, spaces that are just for people that are part of the queer community. And that's okay because white people are queer, but white people are never Black. So, now that we advocate for Black only spaces, that's not okay. It would be, imagine going to a Black only gym, a Black only this, a Black only that, but we can't do that. We can go to Jewish only this. You can go to a white only that, a woman only that. You can go to a queer only this. Like it's just, and I mean, and you said it earlier. A lot of spaces, because we haven't been able to enter them yet, are not white only spaces, but we're not allowed there, so they're white only spaces. You know, like white people always find a way to escape us. Uh, and like I love going to the Nordique Spa. But my first visit there was a white only space. I was there, but there was nothing else but white people there. So they have all these spaces that eventually will infiltrate, but they start off as white only spaces.
Mm-hmm. And probably when you enter those space, when it's unusual, there's a feeling, a small discomfort somewhere. And it's like, oh, that's not our space anymore.
Right?
Which would be interesting if people interrogate that, like, oh, it's true. It's true. When my spaces doesn't look like me anymore, and it feels like that I'm losing control, it doesn't feel good. Like, I wish people were more like open to just acknowledge those feelings. I think it would help those type of conversation.
I think those are hard because those ones, I feel like white fragility is scared of being called racist, right? And that feeling of there are Black people there, it feels racist. And it's, I don't know if it is or if it's not, because there's so much power in whiteness that it's hard to understand when white inclusion with the power now is just racism, because it would be great if you guys could have your own spaces as well, like, and just call it, this is a white only workout group, no Blacks allowed. But there's such a power, this balance that creating those spaces pushes us down, right? Where when we create Black only spaces, it doesn't push white people down. It just allows us to try to continue to lift, we're trying to catch up still. The 400 years of slavery plus the years of segregation and racial inequalities that still exist today. Like, it's like we're equal yet. We're still not there. But as we try to fight those, as we try to have Black women not die in labor, as we just try to become closer to equal, we need to have these spaces just to lift us up a little bit longer. Like, I would love, 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 love. I cannot wait until the day our future generations don't need Black only spaces. I wish we would need those. That would be amazing.
But you would deny reality. It would be like being colorblind. It would be the same thing to be no. We need to acknowledge the pain and the struggle and the trauma, because we need to heal. So I think it does make sense. And I like the fact, well, it's interesting that you said when I enter a space, white people are afraid to be racist. So really they're afraid of racism, but you are afraid also of racism. So there's a fear of I'm scared of being called a racist, but we're afraid that we'll experience racism, and that cannot be put on the same level, really, because it's just not the same thing.
No, because being called a racist doesn't. It's probably true. Like I this is gonna make I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but let me go the male way, because I'm a man, right? And I have privilege as a man. I have a certain power that I possess just as a man. And when I sit in my privilege unknowingly, that I enable, take part in, and profit from, and I am being chauvinist. That's part of the system that we're in. And it benefits me in so many ways when I walk late at night and I walk just confidently. And, I don't think maybe I see a woman coming. I don't think to cross the street. So, like, that is part of it. Because of my power as a man, I am sexist because I act in my privilege. And so that's the same thing as racism. You cannot go your life being white without moments and acts of racism. It's not to say that you're at fault for acknowledging it. It's okay to have those conversations. If someone tells you that they experienced racism at your hands, it's okay to be sad about it, but let's acknowledge that you were being racist. Let's apologize. Let's fix it. Let's not cry about it, and let's move on from there. It's okay. It's going to happen to you, but don't let your feelings about being called racist overshadow my experience when I deal with racism.
Yeah. Yeah, priorities. People struggle with that, just centering the right thing at the right time. That's definitely a struggle.
It's hard not to center any conversation outside of whiteness. For us too. For us too, like I know that you have probably sheltered, not sheltered, softened your reaction to being hurt or to be made feel unsafe to make white people feel more comfortable.
100%. 100%. It happened very often, not just being Black, being queer, being the mom of kids with disabilities. And so having to advocate for them. Like there's very, very, like there's a lot of situation and circumstances where I do have to, dial it down or even let go because it's not going to help me because the people around, like I don't want to deal with other people discomfort or their feelings. And I can see that some people, this is what they're going to prioritize. So I don't want to waste my time or energy.
Yeah.
So I make tough decisions. But yeah, no, it was, well, thank you for sharing that aspect. I think it's always interesting to interrogate those the impact of whiteness and the comment that you said about, it's hard not to center them. It's an effort. Like it's an effort that we have to practice because we see, we want to fix things, but first we need things to stop and then fix. But it's not going to stop until things change. But it's not going to change until they acknowledge they don't. Well, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. That's part of why I wanted to have that conversation, and we're almost at the end of it. But I wanted to have your thoughts about a quote that I chose, because when I was envisioning our conversations and that conversation, that the last part that we talked about power struggles, the discomfort of having people enter your space or having to share a space, it's kind of a negative connotation of I have to build that space because things are not good. And so there's kind of a negative connotation around, running to have a space that's just for Black communities. But I found that we need also to share the positive aspect. It's not about excluding people. It's about giving ourselves what we need and what we deserve. So I'm going to read that quote to you, and you're going to tell me how it blends with you when you want to explain or see things or even share your experience through like a positive lens of why you do this. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. I'm French, so I cannot pronounce that, but you get it.
Mhm. I like that quote. I like that because even with like hugging people, that's how it's done. Everyone that you hug and everyone that hugs you, we hug differently. How close do we hug? How tight do we hug? Which parts touch? Which parts don't? But that whole hug is an act of love. So, for me to love you properly, that hug is going to have to be done at the right boundaries, and that's it. The community, outside the community, building this global community together. Those fences are important. I love that.
I find that if we see those spaces that we want to build that are community centered, it's because we want to learn to love our community ourselves, and kind of a deeper self community love, or more connection. But also it gives us the distance to share that love outside of the community and to feel that we are better connected and we don't have to interact in negative ways all the time. And I like that quote because it's really very much, I'm going to learn with those spaces, I'm going to learn to love me and to nurture me. And then you can also get the benefit of that. And I don't have to always be fearful or scared or worried about what you're going to do, because I'm going to have that space away from that, away from those microaggression, away from that reality, and then I'm going to come back more confident. So
I love that quote.
well, thank you for your time. I'm hoping people got a clear understanding of what a safe space means for like a member of a marginalized community and why it is important to support those spaces. It's part of a resources, compensation, training on community engagement, because we want to teach people how to safely connect with other communities. So how to respect them, how to understand, have a clear understanding of what it is, for example, to have like multi-layered identities. But also I think it's important for people to understand you need to give them space, and they're allowed to have their own space, and they're allowed to not open the doors if they don't want to. They are in charge of those boundaries, and those boundaries are there so they stay safe and they continue to live and thrive. But also it's a way for to keep connecting on their own terms.
Well said.
So thank you for your time. It was
Thank you.
lovely to
Chat soon.
spend that time with you. And thank you for your generosity. Thank you for the work that you do for the community. And I hope you get more and more success with your endeavors.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll talk soon. Bye.